Hi, this is Daniel, and you're watching Unrivaled Investing. Another day, another very exciting IPO. Today, it was Compass Pathways, where the stock went up over 70%. They're dealing with a psychedelic industry, and the question is, can investors expect outrageous returns in the future? So what's the goal of this video? What is Compass Pathways? Ticker is CMPS. Does the stock have 10x potential from here? That's the lens I look at all investments, because at the end of the day, I'm not looking to have small gains. I'm looking for much longer, multi-year big wins. That's how I personally prefer to invest. And what does the investor journey, someone that's investing in Compass Pathways, look like in the years ahead? There's a lot of different pathways. You can go down. Current shareholders, what could you expect your journey to look like? But before digging in, if you're interested in discussing and learning about potential multi-baggers, stocks that can potentially go up hundreds or even thousands of percent over time, hit that subscribe button. If you're already a subscriber, hit that thumbs up. And if you want to know what I'm personally buying, what are the potential multi-baggers that I'm buying for myself each month, go to unrivaledinvesting.com, click on that Journey button. I also create exclusive content just for the subscribers at Journey, where each week I'm coming up with new things, or I'm looking either at interesting financial news or what I've been buying even more recently than the monthly updates, or what's something that's a personal transaction that's occurred recently that it might be worth updating you on. So if you're already a subscriber to the channel and you have a question, or there's a stock you want me to look at, feel free to leave a note below this video. Thanks for watching. So what is Compass? So Compass's mission is to bring psilocybin to the millions of people who suffer treatment-resistant depression. Okay, so I said a lot of words right there. Like, first of all, what is psilocybin? And psilocybin is magic mushrooms. They have a psychedelic effect, mind-altering effects similar to LSD. You can see the little clip that I put out here. It's naturally occurring in more than 200 different species of mushroom. And so you have Compass, which is trying to take the key properties of these magic shrooms and figure out, can they sell it legally? Because right now it's an illegal drug. Can you sell it legally in patients that have treatment-resistant depression? Like, is it helpful for patients with treatment-resistant depression? What is that even? So you have a company selling magic shrooms, and not quite. They are a pre-revenue company. Like, you have to understand that perspective, and you also have to understand like that from a risk spectrum perspective. Like, where are they relative to where could they be in the future? And they're investigating the potential benefits of using psilocybin with treatment-resistant depression. So let's take a step back. Like, what is treatment-resistant depression? So here's a little chart that they have from their filings, where they talk that in the world there's over 300 million people that have a new onset of with a major depressive disorder. The usual first line of treatment is some sort of antidepressant, and there's literally over a dozen different options there to try to deal with it, to try to manage it. The reality is, the way the medicine is now, from reading a bunch of articles about this, is that we don't have mastery of dealing with these challenges with depression. We have a lot of different ideas, we have a lot of potential solutions, but we don't have clear understanding like, hey, this is how your brain works. This is exactly what your brain needs. We're going to prescribe this exact antidepressant to deal with your depression. It's a real problem affecting tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of people. But our understanding at this point is still sort of guesswork of, hey, here's a list of potential antidepressants. Let's try to, it's sort of playing whack-a-mole of like, well, let's apply this one up. That one didn't work. Let's try this one up. And by the way, as you're going through this process, you can have all sorts of negative side effects, weight gain, mood swings, all sorts of things that aren't, that are unfortunate secondary effects. So, you're looking at this massive problem, and this is just the first onset of depression. They say that 60 to 70% relapse. So if 60% relapse, then you're left with about 200 million people. with a major depressive disorder. So then you're trying some sort of combination of, hey, let's mix up this antidepressant with this one. Maybe we actually need to have these two different types, because that's how this person's brain works. And then maybe you need to have some sort of therapy along with it. The challenge with therapy is that it's not, we at the end of the day are looking for an elusive pill. You take something and it solves a problem for you. This elusive magic pill. And, the reality is the challenge with therapy is this thing, with therapy, it can take weeks, if not months, if not years to solve or help address, mitigate the underlying conditions of depression with no guarantee that it'll work. So then there, once again, they're showing relapse rate of 50 to 75%. So now you're down to 100 million people worldwide that, despite trying multiple different types of treatments, they're just not really getting anywhere. And the depression, which is just awful for them, is still sort of clouding their every moment of their day. It is a tough life that they're going through, and it affects people worldwide. And despite all these different approaches, they're just not getting the traction that they want. So there is this huge market for people with treatment-resistant depression. And you're looking at 100 million people. You multiply that by whatever you think those folks worldwide would be willing to pay, and you're talking about a marketplace that's probably worth tens of, if not hundreds of billions of dollars worldwide. So that's rough way to think about it. This is very back of the envelope. So when you look at a company like Compass, that admittedly is pre-revenue, so you're talking, way up on the risk spectrum scale. They're not generating money yet. Do you have potential for 10x from here? Well, first you need to understand, well, what's the size of Compass? At the end of their first trading day, they're valued around $1 billion, but that's obviously going to change day to day. So $1 billion versus, trying to address an opportunity that's potentially tens, if not hundreds of billions of dollars. So that would, back of the envelope, suggest, yes, at least 10x upside. So I get that. But does psilocybin even work? Are they just going down the wrong street? Is this a dead end that they're going at, or is there potential here? And super shrooms, maybe. In several research studies that they call out, and keep in mind, this is independent studies of Compass. These were done throughout, over the last few decades. There's been actually a noticeable improvement in depression. Now, first of all, it should be called out that in these studies, they weren't using the compound that Compass is working with. Now, Compass has a refined version of psilocybin that they claim has higher purity and greater stability than just psilocybin, and so it's sort of their magic stamp on it. But at the end of the day, it's psilocybin that's just being remarketed as Comp 360. So let's go into what some of these other studies, which were using psilocybin, so they are relevant. Even though it's not technically using their product, it is the same product. So let's see what these studies show. And these studies, so why were they even using magic shrooms in the past to deal with these problems if it's unknown? And it was primarily these studies. You can see a study in UCLA in 2011, NYU in 2016, Johns Hopkins in 2016. In each of these cases, it was helping effectively terminal stage cancer patients dealing with the anxiety of their condition. So this is sort of an end of life hospice, sort of a nice treatment of like, hey, can this make your life better? Recognizing you may not have that much longer to live. Like, at the very least, we can help manage your anxiety while you're going through this. We can help manage your depression while you're going through this. And so in each of those studies, and those are the three studies on the left, they do show pretty, they show a range of benefit relative to, having some sort of depressionary index where, in one case, it's like 30% improvement at 1 and 6 months versus baseline. Another shows 60 to 80% participant improvement. Another shows somewhere between 80 and 90% improvement. So there is a little bit of a range, but showing that level of improvement versus a placebo does suggest that there is something out there that is helping There is something special about psilocybin that can help people with their depression. Do we fully understand why? No, we're not. We're not even close. But at least we're sort of figuring out, like, hey, you press this button and you get this. There's sort of a causal relationship here. Let's experiment, and that's what's going on right now. Of can we help those 100 million plus people that have so far been unhelped by the myriad of treatments that are currently out there? So when can Compass actually start making money from psilocybin? Because you obviously, the goal of any company is to be profitable. When can Compass be profitable? When can it justify that $1 billion valuation? Or when can they even just start having sales, aside from having profits? And the reality is it's going to be years and years and years. So their phase 1 trial was in 2019 with 89 healthy volunteers, and that's the largest controlled trial to date. And there were no adverse events associated with that trial. There was no short-term or long-term impact on cognition. So they got enough favorable data from that to say, hey, let's move on to phase 2. We're working with the FDA here in the United States to say, we got phase 2B, let's experiment with the dosing level, and also to make sure that this actually does have a true impact on depression for the folks that we're treating. And so they're exploring 1 milligram, 10 milligrams, 20 milligrams, and also tracking the relative depression of these folks. Now, first, like, hold on. Is this just destined to work out from here? And they're saying, yeah, we're expecting data from phase 2 by the end of 2021. And that's like it's possible you don't even get there. And let's see why. But before getting into why you may not even get to the data from 2021, you should expect, if they do, that'll obviously impact the stock, because people will say, like, yes, positive phase 2 data, this is great, potentially, and then the stock goes higher because they're addressing this market. And that's generally how these pre-revenue companies that are tied to these trials work, is that it's sort of buy the rumor, sell the news sort of thing. And so you'll be seeing that heading into 2021, the end of 2021. But is it possible you don't even get there? And the reality is that 2 patients so far in the phase 2 trial have experienced serious adverse reactions to the trial. One was hospitalized 1 month after treatment, and the other one was hospitalized for suicidal ideation, or otherwise they were having suicidal thoughts, both potentially related or possibly related to the treatment of COMP360, which is the psilocybin treatment, that the magic shrooms treatment that Compass is having with this controlled study. And keep in mind, they're not just like giving patients magic shrooms and saying, like, be off with you, good luck. No, it's very monitored. They want to make sure that no one no one does anything that would permanently harm themselves. It's under the supervision of doctors and nurses that have been trained to help patients go through this treatment. But hearing that there were 2 adverse reactions, honestly, this doesn't sound that surprising. You're dealing with people with a deep depression, and so it's possible that some percentage they're not having a benefit, or just their baseline, you're going to see a higher rate of hospitalizations due to suicidal thoughts, or getting themselves in a position that's not ideal. So this doesn't sound that surprising, and it wasn't enough. For a trial with over 200 people, it wasn't enough for Compass to say, we gotta stop the trial. This just sort of sounds like baseline for a populace that does have a depression that hasn't been treated effectively. And so what's another problem? So one is you don't even get to the end of 2021, and there's more problems with the trial. But what's another potential problem with COMP360? And I have this little picture of these sheep that all look eerily similar as a clue. And the other problem is that you're going to have cloning. You're going to have competition. If they're successful at the end of 2021, this is a company that has a couple $100 million on their balance sheet post IPO. these are the top major, you see these are the logos of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world. They each have R&D budgets that in any given month are more than Compass's balance sheet. And so if they see any success, like it wouldn't be that hard for them to say, let's spend the money, do a study with our own psilocybin treatment, and we can be in market X, fast, probably just as fast or faster than them because they have the resources, they have the know-how of building this out. They already have the sales force to be able to roll it out. Hey, we need to hit up these doctors' offices. So that's a real, like, that's a super duper challenge. To put this in perspective, Compass is a $1 billion company. They have $35 million. They have 35 million shares outstanding. At the end of the first day of trading, they traded at $29 a share, so around $1 billion company. And yes, they're attacking. They're trying to help a problem that's impacting over 100 million people, where treatment-resistant depression, worth tens of billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars. And this is a common problem in capitalism, which is that if you're tackling a problem that is worth tens of billions of dollars, the way the capitalistic machine works is, yes, it's going to attract more and more people to try to address it because they want their slice of the pie. That's a good thing. That means you get better and better solutions in the marketplace. But for Compass shareholders, that may mean, yeah, you might get favorable phase 2 data at the end of 2021. But what's to say that in 2 years from now, you don't have Pfizer also rolling out their own proprietary psilocybin treatment, and they're coming to market maybe a year after you, 2 years after you, and they have a greater sales force that can do it. So that's you have real risks that there's some sort of cloning. Now, also, let's keep in mind, this is going to be a super duper interesting journey for shareholders of Compass. One might even say this might be a mind-altering journey for investors in Compass, just because there are so many different twists and turns that this can take. Like, first, post IPO, they have 160 million in cash approximately on their balance sheet. They're burning $50 million a year. So you have this sort of reflexivity where they're going to need to raise cash at some point because they're pre-revenue, and you're probably not looking at real revenue for years. And so if people buy this story, like, hey, they're going to be successful, then if there's that, this is the part of investing that is so much more art than science that people don't acknowledge, but it really is worth thinking about. Like, if people net are believers, then you will create a higher stock price. And if the stock price is higher, let's say it goes from 1 billion to 10 billion, this is all pre-revenue. Then they could sell, let's say, 10% of their shares to the public. They get $1 billion of cash and ensure that they have no problem coming to market in the next 5-10 years. And you as an investor, you did great because you only had 10% dilution. It went to $10 billion. They sold 10% of their stock. You're fantastic. And now you're in this great position that they have plenty of runway to do research and if they're successful, market the heck out of it. The flip side, and this is all why reflexivity is so important, is that if people become net, they're not believers, they're skeptics, and the valuation goes from, let's say, $1 billion to 100 million, well, they have cash burn of 50 million a year. You're going to need to issue stock, in which case you might issue a lot of stock, and you as a shareholder, like, you effectively get wiped out or have dramatic dilution. So your return in the years ahead is going to be pretty lousy. So a lot of your return from here, I suspect, will depend effectively on the kindness of strangers. Will the strangers in the years ahead, the folks that you do not know who look at Compass, will they look at it with the positive light of, yes, this is an incredible opportunity, this should be worth $10 billion, in which case Compass issues more stock and you're not that diluted? Or do you have a period where it's like, there's so many other opportunities out there, why not? And in a period of low interest rates like we're in, where everything's effectively zero, maybe this is a great time to be buying, Compass stock. I'm personally not. Um, I'm putting this in the too hard pile. That's not to say that it couldn't do really well in the years ahead. A lot depends sort of on the kindness of strangers, how they approach the stock in the years ahead. So you can see here's a picture I'm of my pretend too hard pile. As you can see, it's very big. But that's I have no problem with that. Like the lens I look at every investment is through this unrivaled value proposition. If a company has a good or a service that you simply can't get elsewhere in the marketplace, that means you're unrivaled. And if you're unrivaled, that effectively gives you the right to win. So that you're just going to kick, the competition's butt, or you're the only solution in a marketplace, and you're just gain share. You're going to grow over time. And if a company's growing over time, then shareholders should win as well. But see, this goes back to my other challenge with the cloning aspect of like what prevents one of these top pharmaceuticals from coming out with their own proprietary psilocybin treatment if they see that this is effective. And they say, oh man, they've already done the work for us. Now we know for sure that we should do this research trial because they did this. We're going to do it. Like the risk reward for them is pretty much guaranteed. So why not just wait? Why doesn't Pfizer wait until the end of 2021 to do this, or Johnson & Johnson, or one of the top pharmaceutical companies? Another weird pathway that you could see with Compass is that they have successful trials, and then they just sell themselves to one of the pharmaceuticals, and they're like, look, we already got this proprietary treatment. We don't have the sales force that you do, but we have the treatment. It's gone the FDA stamp of approval. We're going to leverage your sales force to be able to push this out, so that way we can, the spigot, the cash flow spigot can just start flowing right away, in several years' time, once it becomes clear, like, hey, this definitively helps versus a placebo. This is worth it for those folks with treatment-resistant depression. So it's the multiple pathways that you can be on, the journey that you can be on as a Compass shareholder. There are a lot of different paths that this can take. And there's the reality is there's more than one way to play this game. Just because I'm not buying it, doesn't mean someone else can. And I'll show you an example of the way that I'm personally playing the game of, trying to find things with either potentially speculative or sort of juiced upside. And in this example, looking at that risk reward spectrum, I'm talking about the company Novacure. The ticker is NVCR. In full disclosure, I personally own shares in Novacure, and subscribers at Unrivaled Investing Journey, so unrivaledinvesting.com, you click on Journey, they know that I actually bought stock in Novacure at $60 earlier, $60 per share earlier this year. Just recently, it hit 110, up 80% since then. And the reality is, let's look at Novacure. So you can have a solid investment return after a company has de-risked themselves. That's the reason why I'm bringing Novacure to your attention. Is that let's look at their history here. The company was founded in 2000. Like, Research Center established 2002, so 2 years later. Their glioblastoma trials opened in 2004, so 4 years from when they were founded. 6 years later is phase 3. Then by 2011, 11 years after the company was founded, the FDA approved them for the treatment of recurrent glioblastoma, and that's when the company started generating revenue. And that's where they generate the bulk of their revenue at this point. And so then you can see, as the years go on, like, hey, we think we have a revolutionizing treatment for dealing with solid tumors. And that's where you see, oh, the revenue starts growing each year as they layer this in. Like, at this point, they had product market fit. And so now it's just, what other markets can they tackle? And then as an investor, like, yes, there's a wide range of potential investors out there. There's venture investors, there's seed investors that are like, hey, we think you have a good idea, but you don't have product market fit yet. So we don't know if your product will be successful. That's sort of where you are here with Compass. You don't know if psilocybin will be successful. Early indications suggest, like, yeah, there's a good chance that you're going to show that this is favorable versus a placebo, that you're not killing the patients, and, like, yeah, you're going to be potentially tapping into a market that's worth tens of billions of dollars. So yeah, this could warrant a $1 billion plus valuation, maybe $10 billion valuation pre-revenue. So there's multiple types of investors. I personally don't like to be in a situation where I have 100% downside if things don't work out. Now, any stock I own, of course, can drop material, maybe even drop 100%. But I prefer to find a situation where you still have that 10x upside. And I've done a couple of videos on Novacure, where I'm penciling out like, yeah, they've articulated why they think they have this 10x upside, but they've already de-risked their core market. And so that's, for me, is a lot more interesting. I like the situations where, heads I win, tails I don't lose too much. Whereas here, this is a lot harder to sort of justify, just because at this point you have 150 million in cash, a $1 billion valuation. You're really going to need, there's so many different ways this ball can bounce. There's a lot of different paths you can go on, with the journey here. I and plus, one point, it's going to take a long time to get to market. That's part of the reason why I'm showing this Novacure, these data points. 2000, it was 11 years before it's even approved to start selling, their glioblastoma solution. So there's many different ways to play the game. If you are a long shareholder of Compass, I wish you nothing but the best of luck, and I hope, I hope it works out, because there are a lot of people with, really tough depression where having a mind-altering experience through mushrooms, psilocybin, might be super helpful. So hopefully shareholders get a great return. That's not my journey. But if you're interested in following my personal journey, what I'm buying and selling, what I'm holding each month, and why, exclusive content each week, go to unrivaledinvesting.com, click on journey. And the reality is, just finding one multi-bagger can change your own personal life journey. So follow my journey, if you'd like, by going to unrivaledinvesting.com. And thank you so much for watching this video. If you like this video, hit subscribe. If you're already a subscriber, hit that thumbs up button. Thanks so much.